Love is loud in words but quiet in actions. You see, a person can whisper, "I love you" every morning and still leave you feeling unseen, unheard, and unvalued. Because love without respect isn't love, it's possession dressed up as passion. And until we understand the difference, we'll keep mistaking attention for affection and control for care. You can tell everything about a person by the way they listen to you. When someone truly respects you, your words matter even when they're not easy to hear. Respect isn't about nodding while you talk, it's about being present while you speak. But when a man listens only to reply, not to understand, you begin to feel like your emotions are a nuisance he's trying to solve, not a truth he's trying to see. It starts subtly. You're expressing something that hurt you, something small, maybe like a tone he used or a promise he broke. Before you even finish your sentence, he exhales sharply, shakes his head, and says, "You're overreacting." That single phrase may seem harmless, but in that moment, your voice is dismissed, your experience is minimized, and a quiet part of you starts to shrink. Because when you're constantly told you're too sensitive, what you begin to hear is, your feelings are inconvenient. And that's how emotional disconnection begins, not in loud arguments, but in the tiny moments where your truth is met with defensiveness instead of curiosity. Respect isn't measured in how often someone listens, it's measured in how deeply they do. Listening with respect requires humility. It means setting aside your need to be right long enough to hear what's real. But when someone listens only to defend themselves, they're not engaging in conversation, they're preparing for combat. And love cannot survive in a battlefield of egos. I've learned both in research and in my own life that when we feel unheard in our closest relationships, it doesn't just create distance, it creates shame. Shame whispers, "Maybe I'm asking for too much." And the moment you start editing your truth to make someone comfortable, you've started abandoning yourself to keep the relationship alive. That's the hidden danger of being with someone who doesn't listen with respect. You start to betray your own boundaries just to keep their attention. You start thinking, maybe if I say it differently, he'll understand, or maybe if I soften my tone, he won't get defensive. But that's not communication. That's emotional contortion. And when love becomes a place where you have to shrink to fit, it's not love, it's survival. Listening with respect means pausing long enough to ask, what is she really trying to tell me? It's understanding that when someone expresses pain, they're not attacking you, they're inviting you into a deeper connection. They're saying, here's where I need to feel safe with you. But when a man listens to win instead of to connect, he misses the invitation entirely. It's easy to say, "I love you." It's harder to stay grounded when love asks you to listen to the ways you've hurt someone. Real respect shows up in those difficult conversations where ego wants to run, but compassion chooses to stay. So when he interrupts, rolls his eyes, or turns your pain into a debate, he's telling you, without words, that your emotions are less valid than his comfort. And no matter how many times he says he loves you, what you'll feel is loneliness. Because being in a relationship where your feelings are consistently dismissed is lonelier than being single. When love is genuine, listening becomes sacred. It's not about defending, fixing, or explaining. It's about understanding. It's about saying, "I may not agree, but I care enough to sit here and feel this with you." That's emotional maturity. That's respect. But when he listens only to respond, every conversation becomes a competition. Every emotion becomes a threat. And you begin to carry the emotional weight of two people, his defensiveness and your disappointment. You start to anticipate the reactions before you even speak. You rehearse your tone, your timing, your words. You walk on eggshells, not because you fear conflict, but because you know the conversation won't bring healing, it'll bring exhaustion. And slowly, love stops feeling like safety and starts feeling like silence. Because here's the truth, love without respect is just attention. It's surface-level affection that doesn't have the depth to hold your truth. And when a man only listens to protect his pride, he's not loving you, he's managing your emotions to protect himself from accountability. So ask yourself, does he listen to understand, or does he listen to maintain control? Because respect shows up in the quiet moments. When you're speaking your truth, and instead of defending, he leans in and says, "I hear you." That's what real love sounds like. But when he listens only to reply, when every conversation becomes a cycle of justification and guilt, you are no longer being heard, you're being handled. And love should never feel like management. Love should feel like partnership. Because the greatest form of love isn't found in the words, I love you. It's found in the silence between those words when someone chooses to listen not just with their ears, but with their heart. One of the clearest signs of disrespect is when someone values being right more than being kind. You can feel it in the tone, in the defensiveness, in the way he turns moments of pain into battles of pride. Because when a man's ego is louder than his empathy, love becomes conditional. You're loved only when you don't challenge him. Respect requires humility. It's the willingness to say, maybe I hurt you and didn't realize it. But ego resists that. Ego says, I didn't do anything wrong, you're too emotional. And so the cycle continues. He hurts, you explain, he defends, you shrink. Over time, you stop reaching out altogether because you already know the ending. You've learned that your pain won't be met with compassion. It'll be met with justification. When someone chooses ego over empathy, they're choosing control over connection. They can't afford to see your pain because doing so would require self-reflection. And for someone ruled by ego, accountability feels like exposure. It's easier to protect their pride than to confront their behavior. And here's the painful truth. Sometimes we mistake emotional detachment for strength. He may say, I just don't like drama, or you're too sensitive, but those words are armor, because it takes far more courage to sit in discomfort than to dismiss it. Empathy asks us to stay soft in hard moments. Ego tells us to retreat, to shut down, to prove our point. If he truly respected you, your vulnerability wouldn't be ammunition. It would be sacred. He would understand that when you open up, you're not attacking him, you're inviting him closer. But a man who's ruled by ego can't receive vulnerability. To him, it's a threat, not a bridge. I've seen this dynamic over and over in relationships that look perfect from the outside, but feel hollow on the inside. They post pictures, they say all the right words, but when conflict arises, everything collapses. Why? Because love built on ego can't withstand truth. It crumbles under honesty. Empathy, on the other hand, is the quiet strength that holds space for both people to be human. It doesn't seek to win, it seeks to understand. It says, I may not agree, but your feelings are valid. That one sentence can transform a relationship. Because respect isn't found in how someone treats you when everything's easy. It's revealed in how they respond when they've hurt you. A man who loves you with respect doesn't see accountability as an attack. He sees it as an opportunity to grow. He doesn't run from hard conversations. He steps into them. He doesn't silence you when you speak your truth. He listens even when it stings. But when his ego is in control, you'll notice something. He only apologizes to restore peace, not to rebuild trust. His apologies sound like, I said I was sorry, what more do you want? And that's not remorse, that's frustration. He wants the tension gone, not the pattern healed. Love without empathy is manipulation in disguise. It makes you feel responsible for both your pain and his reactions. You start apologizing for being hurt, comforting him when you're the one bleeding. And that's not partnership, that's emotional imbalance. Empathy doesn't mean weakness, it means courage. It means saying, your experience matters even when I don't fully understand it. And if he can't offer you that, if every discussion turns into a defense of his pride, then you're not being met with love, you're being managed by ego. Because the truth is, you can't build intimacy on defensiveness. You can't build trust with someone who's more focused on proving they're right than making things right. So when he chooses ego over empathy, understand that what he's really protecting isn't love, it's his image of himself. And you can't love someone deeply who refuses to see themselves clearly. Real love doesn't need to win. It needs to understand. It needs to say, your pain doesn't threaten me. It connects me to you. That's what respect sounds like. That's what emotional safety feels like. And that's what separates men who say they love you from those who truly know how to. Respect begins where comfort ends. It's easy to say, I love you, when everything feels good. But the real test of love, the kind that endures, is how someone responds when you draw a line. Because boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're doors with locks built to decide who has earned the right to enter. When a man truly respects you, he doesn't just accept your boundaries, he values them. He doesn't see them as rejection, he sees them as direction. But when a man only claims to love you, boundaries feel like confrontation. They challenge his sense of control. They remind him that love doesn't mean ownership. You can hear it in the way he reacts to the word no. If he rolls his eyes, mocks your feelings, or says things like, "You're making a big deal out of nothing," what he's really saying is, "My comfort is more important than your safety." That's not love. That's entitlement. Boundaries are how you teach people to love you. They're not punishments, they're instructions. But a man who doesn't respect you will always mistake boundaries for barriers. He'll say you're being cold, distant, or difficult because your self-respect feels like rejection to someone who's used to privilege. He'll test your limits, not because he doesn't understand them, but because he doesn't believe you'll enforce them. He wants to see how far he can push before you choose peace over self-protection. And every time you bend your boundary to keep him close, you teach him that your comfort is negotiable. Here's the hard truth: people who love you can still hurt you if they don't respect your limits. Love without boundaries turns into dependency. It asks you to abandon your needs for the sake of harmony, to stay quiet so someone else can stay comfortable. But respect says, I can love you deeply and still say no. It says, I can care for you and still choose myself. When he dismisses your boundaries, he's not confused. He's testing your courage. And the hardest thing you'll ever do in love is stand firm when your heart is begging you to stay flexible. You'll tell him you need space, and he'll show up anyway, saying he just wanted to see you. You'll ask him not to raise his voice, and he'll say, that's just how I talk. You'll express that a certain behavior hurts you, and he'll respond, you're too sensitive. Every one of those moments is a message your needs are negotiable to me. But your worth is not. Respect is the quiet presence that says, I won't cross what protects you. It's understanding that your emotional safety isn't optional. It's sacred. A man who respects you doesn't need to test your boundaries to feel powerful. He feels powerful because he honors them. And the thing about boundaries is they don't chase. They don't beg to be understood. They stand, they protect, they filter. Because when you have to convince someone to respect you, you've already stepped into emotional labor that love was never meant to require. Let's be clear, boundaries don't push love away. They protect the version of you that love was meant to cherish. They ensure that connection grows in truth, not in fear. When a man mocks your needs or tells you you're being dramatic, he's revealing his emotional immaturity. He's showing you that he equates submission with love. But love isn't submission. Love is mutual understanding. It's two people saying, I see your limits and I'll meet you there with care. So if you have to constantly explain, defend, or apologize for your boundaries, it's not a misunderstanding. It's a lack of respect. Because someone who truly values you won't make you fight for your right to feel safe. He won't guilt you for saying no. He won't twist your limits into proof that you're difficult. He'll honor them, even when they inconvenience him. That's the difference between love that claims you and love that cherishes you. And here's the most powerful truth: boundaries don't ruin relationships. They reveal which ones were real. Because a man who loves you but can't respect your boundaries doesn't love you. He loves your compliance. And once you stop giving that, his interest fades. But don't mistake that for loss, it's revelation. True love will never require you to abandon yourself to keep it. It will meet you where you stand, respect your no, and still choose to stay. There's a quiet moment in every relationship when you begin to notice it. Not a loud fight, not an obvious red flag, just a small unease that settles in your chest. It's the moment you realize his love feels conditional. That everything is fine as long as you agree, as long as you can play, as long as you don't challenge the version of you he's most comfortable with. At first, it seems like care. He says things like, I just worry about you, or I don't want you to get hurt. Those words sound protective, but underneath them lies control. Because protection without permission isn't love, it's power. And when a man values control more than connection, he doesn't want a partner. He wants compliance disguised as closeness. Control doesn't always look like shouting or demanding. It often hides in small, polite sentences. I don't like it when you go out with them, or do you really have to wear that? It's the subtle tightening of space around you, the slow shrinking of your independence under the illusion of care. He'll call it love because it sounds noble, but love doesn't shrink you, it expands you. A man who respects you doesn't want to own your choices, he wants to witness them. He celebrates your freedom because he understands that your individuality is part of what makes the connection real. But a man who needs control feels threatened by that same freedom. Your independence reminds him he can't define you, and that terrifies him. Control comes from fear, not strength. It's the fear of losing significance, the fear of not being enough, the fear that if he doesn't hold you tightly, you might walk away. But here's what he doesn't realize. Control doesn't create closeness. It kills it. Because you can't build intimacy with someone who feels unsafe in your freedom. In relationships ruled by control, everything becomes a negotiation for emotional safety. You start choosing your words carefully, filtering your truth, walking on eggshells just to avoid setting him off. You tell yourself, he's just stressed, or I don't want to make things worse. But what's really happening is that your nervous system is adapting to survive love that feels conditional. And that's not love. That's emotional captivity. When someone values control over connection, they're not trying to understand you. They're trying to manage you. They measure love by compliance. When you align with their expectations, you're rewarded with affection. When you assert yourself, you're met with distance or punishment. It's a power dynamic disguised as intimacy. Respect doesn't live in control. It lives in choice. It's saying, I love you enough to let you be who you are, even when it scares me. It's the ability to hold tension without reaching for dominance. But control doesn't know how to coexist with uncertainty. It has to command, to dictate, to ensure everything, and everyone stays predictable. And what happens to you in that space is subtle but profound. You start losing pieces of yourself in small increments. You stop doing things you love because they make him uncomfortable. You second-guess your laughter, your clothing, your opinions. You stop being fully you in order to keep him calm. That's not partnership. That's performance. You can't build love on a foundation of fear, because real love doesn't require you to disappear to keep it alive. It invites you to show up fully. Here's what I've learned: connection thrives on vulnerability. It grows in the space where two people allow each other to be seen imperfectly and freely. But control suffocates that space. It replaces I see you with I need you to be who I want you to be. And the more you give up your authenticity, the more disconnected the relationship becomes. Eventually, the control stops being about protection and becomes about power. He'll want to know where you are, who you're talking to, what you're doing, because unpredictability threatens the illusion of dominance. But love, by its nature, is unpredictable. It requires trust. It requires surrender. And control can't coexist with either. You'll notice that in a relationship built on control, connection becomes shallow. Conversations lose depth. Intimacy feels forced. You can sense the walls between you, but every time you try to talk about it, he twists the narrative. Suddenly, you're the one who's too distant, too emotional, too dramatic. It's classic projection. He's creating the distance, but you're carrying the blame. Control is never about love. It's about fear disguised as leadership. And what makes it dangerous is that it's often framed as devotion. He'll say, I just care too much. But what he really means is, I can't handle uncertainty. When a man truly respects you, he doesn't need to limit your world to feel safe in his. He feels secure enough in himself to let you be expansive, curious, and free. He understands that the only way love thrives is if both people can breathe. So if you find yourself constantly reassuring him, constantly walking a tightrope between honesty and harmony, ask yourself, am I being loved or managed? Because connection can only exist where freedom is allowed. Love says, I trust you. Control says, I need to monitor you. And one of those is rooted in respect. The other is rooted in fear. The irony of control is that it drives away the very closeness it craves. Because you can't hold someone tightly and still expect them to feel free. Love isn't about keeping someone under your thumb. It's about holding them with open hands and trusting they'll stay because they want to, not because they have to. And that's the difference between a man who respects you and a man who merely possesses you. One wants to connect, the other wants to contain. Apologies are easy. Change is sacred. When a man says, I'm sorry, but keeps repeating the same behavior, what he's really saying is, I'm sorry you noticed. It's not remorse. It's maintenance, a tool to reset your forgiveness without repairing the damage. And over time, you stop trusting the words because they start to sound like background noise in a relationship that's running on broken promises. Love that lacks respect always confuses apology with accountability. A real apology is not about comfort. It's about correction. It's not meant to make the moment easier. It's meant to make the future different. But when he values being forgiven more than being honest, every "I'm sorry" becomes a strategy, not a surrender. It begins with the pattern: he hurts you, you confront him, he apologizes, things feel better for a while, then the cycle repeats. The apology becomes a ritual, a peace offering that keeps you hopeful enough to stay, but not secure enough to heal. You cling to the potential of change because you love him. But potential isn't transformation. It's emotional credit for work not yet done. A man who respects you doesn't want to be forgiven easily. He wants to be changed deeply. He knows that respect is shown in consistency, not in charm. He doesn't just say the right words, he becomes the right person to match them. But when he doesn't, you begin to feel the erosion. Slowly, almost invisibly, every repeated mistake chips away at your trust until you start doubting not just him, but your own judgment. You start asking yourself, maybe I'm too harsh. Maybe I'm expecting too much. That's what emotional gaslighting does. It teaches you to lower your standards in the name of love. When someone truly respects you, their apology is not a performance, it's a plan. It's followed by changed behavior, honest reflection, and uncomfortable growth. It sounds like, "I didn't realize I was doing that, but I see it now and I'm working on it," not, "I said I was sorry. Can we move on?" There's a huge difference between saying sorry to end tension and saying sorry to begin repair. He might cry, make promises, hold you, and whisper that he'll do better. But tears mean nothing if they don't water growth. Words mean nothing if they don't birth new action. Because love that doesn't evolve becomes manipulation. It keeps you emotionally invested without ever taking responsibility for the harm. And let's be honest, it's exhausting to keep believing in someone who never follows through. You start giving him grace instead of expecting growth. You start calling dysfunction effort, because you've been taught that forgiveness is proof of love. But forgiveness without change is just permission for repetition. We often think staying means loyalty, but sometimes staying means abandoning yourself in the name of hope. Respect asks for balance, compassion for others, and accountability for yourself. A man who respects you will never weaponize your forgiveness. He won't use your empathy as an escape from consequence. He will see your trust as sacred, not as something to be tested. Because real love understands that every apology is a bridge. It must be built, not spoken. Here's the truth. Words are cheap, but consistency is costly. It demands effort, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. It requires him to look in the mirror and say, "The way I love needs work." That's hard. That's humbling. But that's what respect looks like in practice. Change doesn't mean perfection. It means progress. It means showing up differently even when it's inconvenient. It means choosing integrity over comfort. It's saying, "I won't repeat what broke you," even if it takes time for you to trust that. If he keeps saying sorry but his actions never shift, then the apology is no longer about healing. It's about keeping you from leaving. And that's not love. That's control disguised as remorse. Respect doesn't live in empty promises. It lives in patterns. In the way he speaks to you when no one's watching, in the effort he makes when it's easier to stay the same. And here's something I've learned from years of studying shame and vulnerability: people who truly care about you don't want to be right. They want to be real. They don't use apologies to avoid discomfort. They use them to deepen trust. When he values your heart, he'll protect it not just with sentiment, but with consistency. He'll stop repeating what hurts because seeing you safe and loved will matter more than defending his habits. That's when "I'm sorry" becomes sacred again because it means something. So if his apologies keep you stuck instead of safe, if his words soothe your heart but his actions disturb your peace, understand this: it's not love that's keeping you there, it's hope. And hope without evidence of change becomes self-betrayal. Love doesn't ask you to keep believing in words. Respect proves them true. There's a kind of loneliness that lives inside relationships where one person's light is always allowed to shine and the other's is constantly dimmed. You start to feel it in the pauses after your accomplishments. The way his smile falters when you talk about something that makes you proud. The subtle shift in energy, as if your growth somehow threatens his ground. At first, you brush it off. You tell yourself he's tired, distracted, or not good at expressing himself. But deep down, you feel it. When good things happen to you, he doesn't celebrate. You can almost see him shrink. Because a man who doesn't respect you will never celebrate you without comparison. Your success reminds him that love isn't control. And instead of joining your joy, he withdraws from it. It's in the quiet moments that disrespect reveals itself. You tell him about a promotion, and he says, "Must be nice. I wish I had time to focus on my career." You share your excitement about a new project, and he says, "Don't get too confident. You know how things change." You open up about your dreams, and he tells you to be realistic. He's not being practical. He's being protective of his ego. Because for him, love isn't partnership, it's hierarchy. He needs to be slightly above you to feel secure. And here's the hard truth: people who can't celebrate you are people who can't love you in your fullness. They only know how to love you when you're smaller, softer, safer, when your shine doesn't outshine theirs. Respect means equality. It's not about who's leading, who's winning, or who's shining more. It's about knowing that when one person rises, the other doesn't lose. They both expand. But when a man's self-worth is fragile, he mistakes your strength for competition. Instead of drawing inspiration from your courage, he feels intimidated by it. He might even hide behind compliments that sting. "You've really changed," or "You're too busy for me now." Those words are laced with insecurity. They're meant to pull you back down, to make you question whether your growth is costing you love. But let me tell you this: real love will never ask you to shrink to stay loved. Love that respects you wants you to grow. It claps for you when you win, even if it's not his moment. It feels proud, not pressured by your success. But when he minimizes your achievements, what he's really saying is, "I don't know how to love someone who isn't beneath me." And that's not partnership. That's possession. He'll talk about his accomplishments with passion and pride, but when it's your turn, he goes quiet. He's comfortable being the star, not the equal. You'll notice how the conversations always circle back to him, his struggles, his goals, his dreams. And you'll realize he's not sharing space, he's demanding it. Respect means emotional reciprocity. It's the give and take of celebration, the balance of attention, the joy of seeing your partner thrive. A man who respects you doesn't just tolerate your power, he's inspired by it, because he understands that love is not a spotlight. It's a shared fire. If he loves you only when you're small, that's not love, it's containment. It's a relationship built on the unspoken rule that your light must never burn brighter than his. And the moment you stop dimming, he'll call you different, distant, or too ambitious. What he really means is, you stopped needing my validation. That's the moment you'll know the truth. He never wanted a partner. He wanted an audience. Real respect, real connection doesn't fear your evolution. It encourages it. It says, "Go chase it. I'll be cheering from the front row." It celebrates you without feeling smaller in your shadow. Because the beauty of true partnership is that both people grow and both lights can shine without one dimming the other. But when he minimizes you, when he downplays your worth or redirects the spotlight back to himself, he's telling you what kind of love he's capable of, one that thrives only when you're less than. And that's not love. That's insecurity disguised as intimacy. When he respects you, your success feels like his success. He'll say, "I'm proud of you," and mean it, not because it flatters him, but because he genuinely wants to see you rise. He'll see your growth not as competition, but as proof that he chose someone powerful, someone alive, someone real. So here's what I want you to remember. A man who truly loves you will clap for you in rooms where no one else does. He'll speak your name with pride, not resentment. He won't just admire your strength. He'll feel honored to stand beside it. Because when a man both loves and respects you, your light doesn't scare him. It guides him. You can love someone deeply and still not be treated with respect. That's the hardest truth to swallow. Because we grow up believing love is the answer to everything, that if someone says they love us, that's enough. But love without respect is like a house without a foundation. It may look beautiful from the outside, but the moment the storm hits, it crumbles. And sometimes the storm is you finally realizing your worth. Love that doesn't respect you will start to shake the moment you find your voice, your boundaries, your self-worth. Because disrespect cannot survive where self-awareness grows. And that's why when you start to choose yourself, people who only ever loved your silence begin to leave. But here's what Brené Brown teaches us: vulnerability and respect are inseparable. You cannot build intimacy without mutual regard. You cannot share your heart with someone who doesn't honor it. And you cannot keep pouring into a relationship that feeds on your emotional shrinking. Let's be honest, Sometimes we stay because we confuse comfort with connection. We tell ourselves, he's not that bad, he loves me, but love isn't the question. The real question is, does he see you? Does he value you? Does he honor your truth when it doesn't serve his ego? Because when a man respects you, he listens even when it's uncomfortable. He doesn't silence your feelings. He makes space for them. He doesn't use your vulnerability as ammunition in arguments. He doesn't turn your strength into a threat. He doesn't say, you're too emotional, when what he really means is, you're too awake. And if he does, if he belittles your emotions, mocks your boundaries, or competes with your light, then it's not love. It's fear dressed up as affection. It's dependency disguised as devotion. Real love, the kind Brené Brown speaks about, is built on courage and mutual respect. It's two people choosing to see each other clearly and stay kind. It's honesty that doesn't humiliate. It's accountability that doesn't punish. It's presence without possession. When love and respect coexist, something sacred happens. You stop trying to prove your worth because your partner already sees it. You stop walking on eggshells because you know your truth won't be weaponized. You stop begging for scraps of affection because your relationship becomes a space of abundance, not scarcity. But when love lacks respect, you begin to disappear, slowly, subtly. The version of you that laughed freely, dreamed boldly, spoke honestly, she starts to fade because you learn that every time you show up as your full self, it costs you peace. And that's not love, that's emotional erosion. So here's what I want you to take with you. Love that asks you to silence yourself is not love. Love that makes you question your worth is not love. Love that thrives on your shrinking is not love. Love should expand you, not contain you. Respect should anchor you, not chain you. And I know it hurts to accept that someone can love you and still not know how to respect you. But healing begins when you stop trying to teach people how to see your worth. You cannot convince someone to respect you. They either do or they don't. The truth is, you don't lose love when you walk away from disrespect. You lose control's illusion. You lose the version of love that was never real to begin with. You lose chaos disguised as chemistry, and what you gain is peace, dignity, clarity. When you choose respect over attention, you stop chasing love that hurts. You start attracting love that heals. So, if he says he loves you but his actions make you feel small, listen to that feeling. It's not confusion, it's clarity trying to get your attention. You are not hard to love. You're just refusing to be loved halfway anymore. Because the most powerful love story you'll ever live isn't the one where someone finally sees your worth. It's the one where you do. And when that happens, when you finally realize that love means nothing without respect, you stop settling for words. You start looking for alignment. You stop needing someone to complete you, and you start choosing people who complement you. That's when love becomes beautiful again, when it's mutual, mindful, and rooted in respect. Because the truth is simple, anyone can say, I love you. But only the brave say, I respect you, and only the real ones prove it.